Welcome to the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts Mark Ernay and Sean Castles, coming to you from Radio Waves Studios in New York City. Now, let's kick off the show.
Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome back to the Ultra World Podcast. Today, I have a special guest. Todd Smith, author of Relegated, is joining us here. He's currently on a book tour, and I gotta say, it is perfect timing because it's not just the World Cup, it's also the summer and summer book reading. And people need books when they're laying out at the beach or the pool to get through. And Todd has written a fantastic book. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor to be talking about football, especially from the city of Boston, where the Tartan Army has invaded, and the vibes for the World Cup are really alive here. So I'm feeling excited to be a part of this conversation.
It's awesome. And I actually want to ask briefly before we get into the book, what is the atmosphere like? Because I'm seeing the videos on TV, on social. My wife and her family are from Boston, and they're loving every minute. So what is it like there in Boston right now?
Well, Boston is one of the greatest sports cities in America. Now add thousands of Scots into that mix that haven't been a part of the World Cup for decades. And I got to tell you, the vibe is electric in the streets. I mean, you're seeing men in kilts everywhere, in Harvard Square, eating burritos on the rooftop decks. Everyone is singing and chanting in random intervals all over the city, and you can't make it up, but that's why the Tartan Army is the Tartan Army.
And that's what makes the World Cup so awesome. It's just everybody coming together for fun. It really is an amazing, inspiring experience. And speaking of inspiration, first off, if you give us a little summary of what we can look forward to when reading your book, Relegated.
Yeah, I took a 3-month road trip through the entire world of English and Scottish football, so UK football. I traveled from the very top of the ladder, of the pyramid. The story starts literally on the roof of Tottenham's billion-dollar stadium, and then 3 months later, I ended up on a remote Scottish island.
Nice.
In a like an 8-team league that plays on this island in the worst weather imaginable. And during those 3 months, I went from the north to the south. I went grassroots teams. I went League One, League Two. I covered all the distance for American football fans. It's a travel memoir that is first person, so I'm bringing you along on the journey with me. What I see, what I hear, what I eat, the whole thing, all the pubs, all the away ends, I cover all that ground. And funny enough, I love your podcast because it's about community.
Thank you.
So I embedded with the communities all over England and Scotland. From the grassroots meeting, I played pickup footy my whole way across the UK, meaning I was showing up at 7 a.m. at pitches that were cages underneath freeways in West London, in East London, in Manchester, meeting football supporters where they were on the ground, boots level. And that was no small task because I'm a 50-plus-year-old broken down donkey of a soccer player.
That's what I was going to ask next. I'm in the same boat. How do you get out there and it's not just kicking the ball around.
I've played my whole life, and so I know how to play. Whether my body wants to get me there or not is another story. But it was just one of those things.
Does anybody ever take it a little too far in the games? Does anyone just take it a little too seriously and someone gets hurt?
Well, the first game I played in West London, in the famous cages of West London, they're famous for street level football players. And that's where I decided to start, foolishly. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life, not just of football, but in my life in general. And it was so awful because it was so aggressive and so angry. The pace was suffocating. After that awful experience, I actually had the miracle of discovering my fellow donkeys of West London, where I found a pickup game of people my age, of all these men that were in neoprene sleeves, and no one was running. The ball was doing all the movement, and I entered that pickup game, and that became my surrogate family overseas. And then I had the similar experience in Manchester, where Manchester's a biblical city in terms of football in the UK. So I got into one of the most famous pickup games, which would be like Rucker Park pickup hoops in New York City.
That's what I was going to say. In New York City here, we have some big basketball, very big in the Village and in the Bronx.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be like that. There was a bunch of ex-pros that were there, and then a bunch of just dudes that had been playing like futsal basically their whole lives. So they were like magicians. But that game was different because the play was so superior to anything I'd ever experienced. But the vibe was super cool. Everybody was welcoming, and I was invited into that community as a broken down donkey. And it was so wonderful.
And a question here: how do you approach? Do you just show up at the field, at these fields, and like if I was at the local Y and trying to join a basketball game, is that what you do, or do you have to reach out in advance? Like, how did you get involved in these games?
That's a great question. The app is called Footy Addicts, and The Guardian just had a big article about Footy Addicts and how it's helping reduce the experience of modern loneliness, right? Where everyone is online and connected all the time, but real human connection is going by the wayside. Where Footy Addicts offers pickup footy games all over the UK that you can join, and you have to pay like $5, $10, but you can play at all hours of the day in almost every city. And so you kind of have to navigate your way through the different vibes in different games, because some of the games are 10v10.
Yeah.
Some of them are 5v5. Some of them are East London. Some of them are in Manchester. So you kind of find your way through it. But what I did as a writer, as a journalist,
Yeah.
I reached out to Footy Addicts as a company, and they had a media rep who guided me to like join this game here, do not join that game there.
What was the do not join that game? Is there anything? Of course, everyone wants to know that one.
Yeah, dude, there was a game in East London. It was just a different vibe, meaning interlopers were not welcome.
Yeah. It's like going out in the waves in California and certain beaches, and you're like, hey, locals only.
That's a great point, because I use that same reference in the book Relegated, that each one of these games was a different surf break. They had their own rules, their own level of how hard you go in, how hard you don't, whether you're wearing full shin guards, whether you're wearing studs, like the whole thing. And as an American, you had to really step back and kind of let the game play out and observe the culture,
Yeah.
the who was in charge, and to ask the questions and all that stuff. But yeah, the surf break analogy is 100% right.
As a surfer, or until I threw out my back and hurt myself surfing, I can absolutely vibe for that, because North Carolina breaks are different from New York breaks, are different from French breaks, which are different from Los Angeles and Mavericks. They're all just different communities. Some are very open. Some are like Point Break, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And like Manchester was one of those games where I realized really quickly that the ball can't stay on my feet more than 2 seconds. Like it has to move.
Yeah.
Like you have to keep moving. Whereas when I joined the West London Donkeys, that was like no one was running. And so you could like receive the ball, get your head up, get some easy passes in, and take your time. Yeah, so definitely I experienced both Mavericks and maybe an easy North Carolina.
Well, yeah, the North Carolina. I did. Wilmington would be a really nice one, and also out in like Southampton and Long Island, most of the people are pretty nice. Although the breaks themselves are just like right on the beach, which is a little dangerous.
Yeah, sure.
You're traveling around Europe. Do you have a favorite soccer team before you went in, or did you find yourself attached to a certain soccer team, and why?
Yes and yes. As you mentioned, my dad is a Hall of Fame athletic trainer. And so he was at the University of Minnesota. He was with the Minnesota Kicks, the Minnesota Strikers, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Miracle on Ice. And so a large part of my childhood has been exposed to professional athletes. When he was with the Kicks and the Strikers, my childhood was filled with English and British and Irish football players. My favorite player for the Minnesota Kicks was the captain named Mike Bailey. Mike Bailey was like a James Bond like character in my life, real life James Bond, where he was strikingly handsome. He was Robert Plant's favorite player for Wolverhampton.
Really?
Yeah, when Wolverhampton won the cup in the 70s, Mike Bailey was their captain and an absolute battle axe in the middle of the pitch. But he also was my dad's best friend. And so Mike Bailey exposed me to all of these wonderful stories about the legends of international football, which if you trace it back, my kitchen table was the genesis of my writing career, of hearing these sports stories in the kitchen of my childhood home.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah, Mike Bailey was the captain of the Wolves. So we became Wolverhampton supporters, but we could never watch them. We were just Wolverhampton supporters in theory. And then they got into the Premier League, and then we could support them officially. And so when I went on this 3-month journey, I was a Wolverhampton supporter. I am a Wolverhampton supporter, and I went to see Wolves play at Brighton, and I was in the away end. So I got to experience the tribal aspect of 3,000 Wolverhampton supporters in a midweek game, traveling from the Midlands down to Brighton, which is a beach community, and experience that Lord of the Rings like a vibe of the Midlands mid-tier football club. A lot of beer, a lot of guttural chanting. So I loved that experience.
That's exactly. Wolverhampton definitely is drawing me in. I hear that Mark Hamill's also a Wolverhampton fan.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I heard that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of kismet that you're writing Relegated, because they did get relegated, but now the champion division is going to be on Paramount here in the States. So
Yeah.
that is actually growing here, because people are realizing that division is really, really, really good too. It's probably on par with Ligue 1 and some of the other smaller leagues in Europe. It's a dynamite league.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was the thing that I experienced the most was the Premier League. I will always encourage people to go see the Premier League. You need to see it up close in person because it has the best players in the world. And these stadiums are cathedrals in English football history. Some of them are modern, like NFL stadiums.
Yeah.
But to see that play up close is spectacular. It is cracking. I mean, you're hearing these passes that sound like gunshots. And the crispness of the play and the tempo is breathtaking to see up close. But sometimes the vibes can be a little off because it's a little more corporate, it's a little more whitewashed. And you go into the Championship League and League One and League Two, and then you start to experience football on a different level where you start to really feel that tribal aspect, the community aspect. And you asked me if I became a fan of a club, and that's an easy choice for me, which was Stockport County.
Oh.
Stockport County is south of Manchester, just one train stop south. And so their neighbors are City and United. massive clubs in world football.
The monsters of the Premier League.
The monsters in there, and Stockport has always been one of the worst cities in the UK, and it was one of the worst cities in the Industrial Revolution. But they have a proper football club that had a lot of glory, but eventually got relegated out of league football, and they got new ownership. They started to fight their way back up, and as they fought their way back up, the town started to lift back up. And so you see how integral the team is to the success of the town. The success and failure of the team can direct right to the success and failure of the town. And Stockport's a perfect example of that. And so I met the president of the supporter club of Stockport County, and he was a lifelong fan. And he took me to the game with his tribe. And he told me to meet him in a pub in Stockport before the match. The pub was called the Ye Old Vic. They've been serving this particular kind of, beer and method since beer's been invented in England. Like, it is as old school an English pub as possible.
So it's like a special Monk's Brew.
Yeah, dude. It was the pubbiest pub I had ever experienced in my life. And the problem was I was supposed to meet this supporter named Dave, but I didn't have a picture of him. I didn't know what he looked like. So I showed up in the pubbiest of pubs in Stockport, not knowing who I was meeting. So I had to go up to all these random dudes and say, "Are you Dave? Are you Dave? Are you Dave?" And it became one of the most fun stories to write in the book.
That could go wrong really quickly, too.
Oh, and it did, right away. It was you just have to read the book to see how...
Yeah, definitely. That's one reason to read right there.
Yeah, and so then I go to the game with Dave and his supporters, and as we inch closer to Edgeley Park, you're walking through Stockport. You come across the mural that says, "The Scarf My Father Gave Me," which is a famous chant and song about a grandfather handing down the club scarf to his son, and then he hands it down to his son, and it's an amazing song. And then you get to the park, and you're feeling the tribal chants and the songs, and then you go through that old metal turnstile, and all the hardcore supporters sit in the Cheadle end, and it's one bank of seats, really tall, but it's under a steel roof. And you enter on the bottom. So you're at the bottom of an avalanche of song. And you cannot help but have this enter into your soul. And you get into the middle of that Cheadle end, and it was an experience unlike most American experiences, where there's in-game stadium songs and chants and entertainment, and there's corporate suites and all that stuff. And you find yourself in a bank of supporters that have been there since they were children. You cannot help but have this enter your sports soul, and it did. So Stockport County, up the Hatters.
All right, that's one place definitely going to be on the list. That and Dorcoping, I hear, are really, really great. And you hit on it perfectly, because the Wrexham guys mentioned this too, of the town is growing as the soccer team grows, and how much football is interwoven in European and South Americans' lives in their local sports. Like, it really is. They build their whole week around their one or two matches. That's the social schedule.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
Yeah, it really is. The easy antidote is to say that it has a kind of a religious connotation, because the games in the lower leagues traditionally are all Saturdays at 3 p.m. And so the week now is leading towards one date at one time, similar to the Sunday Mass in America or globally. But for sports, it's 3 p.m. on Saturday. And so the economy, employment, all the things are tied leading up to this. And there's been studies that affect
Wow.
like the success and defeat of a team can correlate to the birth rate, to the crime, to the violence. Like it's staggering how tied together. But that sacred Saturday at 3 p.m. is actually written into law. And I discovered this because I interviewed a historian for the football museum in Manchester. And he said that it's part of the law that the lower leagues, Saturdays at 3 p.m., like the English Premier League can't encroach on that time where they can't televise live games during that period. And so that's why you have Premier League games before then and after then. And that's why they didn't want to strip the smaller cities of their supporter clubs. They didn't want to make the supporters have to choose between supporting Stockport at Saturday at 3 p.m. or Man City. And so they switched the time so you can support both, right?
See, that's great.
It is.
I wish the U.S. would take something out of that because, listen, I will gladly sit on my couch and watch all day soccer. I love American football. I will watch American.
Yeah.
I hate going to American football games because of the violence and the drunkenness.
Sure. Yeah.
And they could take a page out of the book, the NBA too, like that. And actually, let's dive into a little bit of relegation here and how that affects the league and these teams, because you say it rises, the teams rise and fall, or the towns rise and fall based on their team success. Here in the States, if Philadelphia has a bad season or if Oklahoma City had a bad season, they don't have to worry about going down. They still get their same fans, same stuff like that. Tell us a little about relegation, how it affects those leagues.
Yeah, this is a very personal conversation for me as a Twin Cities sports fan. And now we're going to start this anecdote in current English Premier League, where West Ham got relegated this year. And so they're going to lose $250 million by being relegated.
Wow.
And there's a clause in their lease at the London Stadium that says if West Ham ever gets relegated, they will only have to pay half the rent for London Stadium. The other half of the rent will have to come from a tax that is placed on the people of London. So that is real stakes. So East London, which is already a tough place, it's a hard part of London, where the community around the West Ham matches at London Stadium counts on the revenue generated from West Ham. So West Ham goes down, they lose that cushy TV deal. Mm-hmm. They tax the citizens to pay the rent. Now they have to sell off all of their top players to recoup the money. They have to sell their prospects. So they have to basically sell off their future. Now they can't attract world-class players to play for them. Yeah. So the gate is now going to go down because the play on the field is going to suffer. And when it suffers, they can't get corporate sponsorship, which means money. So now you're talking about the spiral that can happen to a club if they don't have everything locked in, a plan to get back up. They can spiral from the championship to the mid-table, and then before they know it, they're in the relegation zone, and then they're in League One. So this is how this happens.
You know, it's funny you say that. A couple episodes ago, I interviewed a West Ham fan, and he talked about the London Stadium, and I didn't know, I've actually been there, and I didn't know that it was gifted to them after the Olympics.
Yeah.
And he had said, like, we don't even like it as West Ham fans. We miss the old stadium, and the vibe is there. It's very corporate now.
Yeah. And it's a 99-year lease, and they never thought they'd ever get relegated, and now here they are. And so you compare this to what happened to them. So real stakes, financial loss, on the field loss, corporate sponsorship loss. The gate is down. You compare this to the Minnesota Twins, which is my hometown baseball team, who have been the worst in the league for decades, and nothing has ever happened to them. The gate is abysmal, but they never get relegated. The owners know that every year they get this major league TV deal. Nothing's ever going to happen to them. They can be awful for infinity.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen to them. But guess what? They go into this season knowing they're not going to be competitive. They're not going to compete for a pennant. They're not going to the playoffs. The on-field talent is mediocre at best. They don't care. What they offer people like me in the Twin Cities is dollar beers, new food at the food items, and then they'll offer nights where you can bring your dog to the park. So there are no stakes at all.
Yeah.
Real stakes at the top level of American sports. But it's all just really capitalism, right? Like, do you think Jerry Jones,
It is.
Dallas Cowboys, is going to let his Cowboys have a chance to get relegated down a league and lose an NFL TV deal? There's not a chance ever that that's going to happen. But
No way.
in English football, you can have a team like Stockport fight their way all the way back up and get into League One and get into the playoffs to get promoted to the championship division, which just happened. And if they get promoted, they're going to make tens of millions of dollars if they get into the championship division. And they lose that playoff game at Wembley to get promoted. Those are real stakes. And I got to experience
like the whole
that.
Southampton game where there was it was such high stakes that they were accusing each other of cheating and Spygate. It was like the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick were being brought in.
Dude, it's like, yeah, totally. That was the memes that were generated by that are like a bottomless pit of humor, which I enjoy.
I'm here for all of that. That's what makes sports great is if you can't poke fun at your rivals in a nice way, then what is sports about? I actually have a really important question here because I love food and I'm seeing things about meat pies and pub food. And I kind of want to know about what was the best food you went to and why is that essential to this football experience?
Yeah, I mean, the pie, the subtitle of the book is Relegated: One American's Pints and Pies Journey from the Top to the Bottom of English Football. So the hand pie is like traditional football ground food. And it's like if you think of like an empanada or like a handheld pastry that's filled with savory meats. That's what we're talking about.
I love it.
Like some pies are better than others, but like when you're out at these matches that it's winter and you're on a terrace in Scotland and the field is literally at Gayfield Park in Arbroath, Scotland, up on the northeast coast of Scotland, which is where I went to because it was the closest pitch to the North Sea. And I wanted to go interview this groundskeeper who, what is his job like to tend to the turf that is separated by a seawall to one of the angriest bodies of water in the world.
And salt everywhere. It's bad for plants.
And the groundskeeper was a legendary dude whose nickname was Boomer. And he was like Bill Murray character from Caddyshack. And as I'm touring the ground, there's literally like a lobster tail in the goal box because the seabirds drop all their like mussels and snails and lobster tails and stuff on his pitch. That's a real life story. That's in the book.
Oh, I love it.
But anyways, Gayfield Park has an old school terrace, so there's no seats. It's all like leveled tiered seating or standing. There's no seats. And so they have a pie hut that's literally a pie hut on the top of the terrace. And the background is the North Sea. And so you eat that pie and drink the bovril, which is also, it's like beef tea, which like
Beef
in
tea?
America,
Wait,
yeah,
I need to.
yeah, beef tea. So it's like beef broth, basically.
Interesting.
And so it's piping hot. The pie and the bovril are piping hot. And everybody told me for 3 months, when you get into Scotland and you are out on these terraces, trust us that the bovril and the pie are going to save your life. And I was like, yeah. Like, how good can this be? And then I got there, and at the match, guess what? Saturday, 3 p.m., the North Sea is howling, and the winds are cutting me into ribbons. At halftime, I get myself a steak and ale pie with a bovril, and those little nuggets kept me alive in that moment of just being torn apart by the cold and the wind.
Wow.
And I thought, oh man, this is when you compare this to the first stop, which was the Tottenham Stadium, where I go on a tour and I'm on the roof of the stadium with my son Murphy. And then Murph and I go to a game at Spurs Stadium, and they have a sommelier who's handling the wine. There's a cheesemonger. The food is like, I'm not going to say world class, but they have a restaurant that is Michelin star levels and all the things. And
That's world
so,
class for British food, and not
yeah,
to
yeah,
knock it.
yeah. So the British food thing, I mean, it's a mockery for a reason, but there's great food and all the little pockets of all the little towns I went to, curries and jerk chickens and stuff like that. But the pie, the handheld pie, it's a pastry that you will nourish. It will save your life, and you will love it, and it will be a part of the football viewing experience.
It's really interesting to me that America brings food from all over the world. I'm in New York City. I have Ethiopian restaurants near me. Tons of Italian, Thai, like and anything you can
Yeah.
think of, I can find it. And yet, I can't find meat pies anywhere. It is really hard. We don't make meat pies
Yeah.
here. Just like I'm Swedish, I make my own Swedish meatballs. There's nowhere that sells Swedish meatballs. So like, I'm kind of surprised that America hasn't taken that on because
Yeah.
when I was in England, I've had it or Australia. It's delicious. And how has that not come over here yet? Sorry, just need a
Yeah.
little aside there. As
Oddly,
someone who loves food.
yeah. I mean, oddly, in Minneapolis, we have, well, not oddly, because it's a Scandinavian city. And so we have Swedish meatballs that are like world class. But we also have a food truck called Potter's. They just sell hand pies, English hand pies.
Oh, nice.
That's again a part of your American viewing of European football. The Potter's food truck will oftentimes be outside of pubs that are showing the games in the Twin Cities. And so you kind of get a little taste of that.
I love it. I'm going to use that to kind of switch us into your local town, Minneapolis.
Yep.
What is the soccer experience there? What are the fans like? Is there local supporter clubs and people going out to bars? What is it like there for soccer fans?
Yeah, I mean, the Twin Cities, the Minnesota as a state is the state of hockey. I mean, we produce more ice hockey players, men and women, I should say, than any other state in the union. And that is our proud history. But oddly, Minnesota is one of the great soccer cities in America. It's not like Kansas City or St. Louis, but it's not too far off. We had a huge European immigration that brought soccer with them. And the Minnesota Kicks of the NASL was one of the greatest experiences in American football. And we have hosted the largest youth soccer tournament in the country that I played in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a kid, it was like I was playing teams from all around the world as a child. And so that Minnesota is a sleeper great American soccer city. And the culture now is very, very strong for our MLS team. We have a women's team, the Aurora, and the Premier League supporter clubs all have like branches in the Twin Cities. In fact, I am a Wolverhampton supporter with the Twin Cities Wolves, and so we get together at the Blackheart Pub in St. Paul, which was won the international award from St. Pauli, which is the legendary club in Europe.
Yep, German Bundesliga.
Yeah, and so it's a great European style supporter in America. My personal experience is I grew up playing soccer as a youth and in high school, and I played 1 year in college, just Division 3. And so when my son Murph started playing travel soccer, I kept, as a youth soccer or youth sports parent in America, you spend literally all your free time just driving your child to all these matches. And
Yeah.
there I had that moment where I was like, well, why can't like we play? But all the leagues were trending younger, right? And I was
Yeah.
in my mid 40s at this time. And so I formed my own league for Sunday morning pickup footy for basically out of shape moms and dads that wanted to play
Yes.
soccer. And so I called it the Donkey Soccer League because we were no longer thoroughbreds. This was our last pasture before the glue factory. And so the Donkey Soccer League had just celebrated their 10th year anniversary. And
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so that game is governed like a surf break, where if you're too aggro, if you're just not a good hang, if you're bringing bad energy to Sunday mornings, I am not shy, and you will be removed from the email list. And that is a real fact, because no one wants to get hurt on a Sunday morning because we all have to go to work.
Yes, we don't heal as well as we used to.
Yeah, the point being is that I'm cultivating a community of people that support the game of soccer locally at a grassroots for the Donkeys, and locally with our Minnesota Loons, and internationally with the club that you support internationally. So we have people from South America, we have people from England and Scotland, and all over the world, mixed in with American doctors and painters and teachers, and a one intrepid writer who decided to write a book for all of us. So that's really the background of how I was inspired to write this book, because this was the dream trip for all the donkeys, but everyone who goes to a Minnesota United game, and we're watching the Seattle Sounders on a lovely night in St. Paul. And I would say about 75% of those people there in that stadium, if they got the opportunity to get paid to travel through the English football pyramid, that would be a dream trip. And so
Absolutely.
that's how I set out to write this book. But what was interesting about the experience is I wrote I turned in a complete manuscript that was a traditional non-sports, like a non-fiction book about English football and Scottish football.
Okay.
And then my editor at Simon and Schuster, it said we need to talk, which is like never good. And so when he called and he said, hey, dude, the material is gold. It's all here. No worries on that. But you have to rewrite the whole manuscript. as a first person travel story because all of the American supporters of soccer and American sports fans are going to be traveling with you to all these little cities and all these big clubs, and you're taking them with you. So you're going to have to like basically turn this into Anthony Bourdain's no reservations, but with football as the focus, and the backdrop would be food, music, pop culture, but community, because you're connecting the American community to the international community. And I was the vehicle to do it. And so my background in Minnesota soccer culture became the basis for my travel to the English football world.
I feel like that is a wonderful point because while, yes, soccer is dominated by people who love athletics, you're laying out something that anyone can take part of. Any gender, any race can go out and just enjoy soccer and watching it and being with the community. You don't even have to really know soccer, but you're giving kind of an outline of, you know what, go off to England and Scotland and experience these here yourself. You're gonna have a great time. Even if you aren't a big soccer, fan, you can still go out there and enjoy yourself. That's one of the beauty of soccer as a community, is that it's inclusive and it's more than just the game. It's something that unfortunately American sports is not really good at doing.
No.
The NFL and the NBA are, it's about the players, it's about the game itself, but it's never really about the community.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point, because when I went to all these places, whether they were big cities or little cities or on islands or in the cushy Downton Abbey Cotswolds to the steel-toed boot of Stockport, every person I met, I would introduce myself as Todd from America. Because it would let the person I was talking to it was a humorous way to say, I'm an idiot abroad, but I love the sport of football.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, we had a common language that we could talk to each other, and it broke down every barrier that was between us, between my nationality, my gender, I was raised Irish Catholic. Like, it broke down everything. And that was like such a unique experience, but it's actually the point of the sport of soccer and football, because you can't go anywhere in the world with any other sport. You can't do it with ice hockey, American football or baseball. Some basketball is somewhat of a global game now, but not nearly as global as
a little bit,
football.
but not.
Yeah. And so the fact that I was going into all these communities and I would say, I'm Todd from America, and they would say, why are you here in Ullapool, Scotland? And I would say, I'm writing a book about relegation and promotion in football, because we don't have relegation or promotion in American sports. So their first question would say, what do you mean? Like, how do teams go up and down, or do they just stay there forever? And
they just take your money.
Yeah. So now we had a conversation that would break down all of the barriers. And so Relegated is really taking off because it's a sports book that's actually not fully about sports. It's a travel story, but it's a story about community and how we build community with soccer or football.
It is. It's a travel and community, except there is some soccer being going on.
Yeah, 100%. And I had to there's obviously a lot of soccer in the book, But when I was writing it, I had to like take a step back and realize, oh, I probably need to add some game reporting into this story. So I would look at all my notes from the matches, and then I would rewatch the games. And then I would, I'm a former NHL writer. So like I have that experience of doing game reporting. And so like I would have to go back and report about the game because I spent so much time on writing about community,
Mhm.
the feeling of hope, of the feeling of desperation, of being relegated as a human, as a worker, as a sports fan, societal relegation, all of that stuff. And I think really, truly, you can't do that with any other sport but football.
No, I love all the feels, if you will.
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up here, I kind of want to do a little rapid fire here, and it doesn't have to be specific to your book, but I want to ask about stadiums and crowds and fan bases, and it can be US, it can be England, Scotland, wherever around the world, but a few rapid fire questions here. The first is, what was the most beautiful stadium that you've been to?
Would be Goodison Park in Liverpool, which Everton has moved out of Goodison Park,
Yes.
and now they're in $1 billion stadium down on the river. But I got to experience Goodison in its last season, and that was a holy experience. That was a cathedral of English football. There's something called the Goodison Roar, where the Liverpool fans are so hardcore that they take the game so seriously that they oftentimes don't cheer or sing the entire game because they're so intense. But when something good happens during a game, whether it's a good pass or a hard tackle or something spikes their attention, the whole crowd will start screaming and chanting all at once, known as the Goodison Roar. And I got to experience that. And it
A good English lion, right? What was the most positive crowd that you experienced?
Well, that's a tough one. The most positive crowd, I'm trying to look back on the games, had to be Clapton CFC, which is a non-league team in East London that is like St. Pauli, where they're anti-fascist, they're pro-worker, they're pro-immigrant, they're accepting of all genders and races and orientations. And it was the most positive vibe I've ever experienced at a sporting match.
I love it. All right, next, most creative crowd chants.
I was with Wolves away at Brighton. And Brighton, as I mentioned, is a beach town, very cerebral, very laid back. And they don't cheer a whole lot. And I was in the Wolves away end, and the Wolves supporters, including myself, started mocking the home support of the Brighton supporters by chanting, "Is this a library? Is this a library?" Yeah.
I went to Duke, so one of the few places in America that actually has creativity in the stands is Cameron Indoor, and I will always give them a shout. They do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very well. Last one here, and it's a little darker, but what team fan base would you not want to meet in a dark alley?
Definitely the Liverpool supporters. The Scousers, traditionally they consider themselves Scouse before they consider themselves British. It would be the equivalent of South Boston of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where it's very cloistered and it's very tribal.
The Winter Hill Gang area, yeah.
Yeah, it is very hot tempered. They are ready to go at any moment, which is very disarming because when they talk to you, their accent is very sing-song, has notes of Irish
Yeah.
because it's a very Irish city, but it sounds like one of the Beatles is talking to you. but what they're actually saying to you can be like really just awful. But you're like, it sounds nice.
It sounds really nice that I'm insulting you.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Well, first, I want to thank you for coming on here. Before we go,
Yeah.
I need you to tell us, where can people find your book? How can they follow you? Give us the full runaround of where our listeners can get all this stuff.
Yeah, so Relegated is published by Simon & Schuster, and so you can find it anywhere online or Barnes & Noble or any independent bookstore should have it, or you can order it. To follow me and my kind of shenanigans in the world of football, there's an Instagram handle that is Relegated the Book. And then I have a website, which is toddsmithauthor.com. And on that website, it's great because it has the photo gallery that matches the book. So there's a map and it's divided by chapter 1, chapter 2. And so you can read about what I went through, and then you can go to the website to see the pictures of what I was talking about. And then you can also message me via the Instagram or the website. Yeah, so that's the thing.
And people can go to the website and kind of build their own travel schedule out of this. I'm looking at it right now. You've got 16 places. It's a great chance for people to be like, well, you know what? I want to do my own little mini England or Scotland soccer tour. And you kind of lay it out perfectly for them here.
Yeah, 100%. And like, you can always ask me questions about the travel, about where to go, where not to go, tips, anything like that, because I did a year of planning before I went, which is a part of the story. It's like in the introduction of like how I kind of decided where I was going to go.
Nice. And I see it goes the gamut from East London to the posher areas of Bath, which must have been really nice. And, so you really hit on all of England and the UK and just like all of its eccentricities.
Yeah. And Bath is my favorite chapter in the whole book. And it does not involve any soccer, which is hilarious because my wife, Sarah, who the book is dedicated to, I just happen to be married to someone who's allergic to sports. And she hates the sight of it, the sound of it. She doesn't understand it. Her first concert when she was 13 was David Bowie. So I just happened to marry like one of the cool kids that had no time for sports, which is why I love her. But when you're on a month long, she was with me for a month, and I'm obsessed with football. I'm in the Holy Land about football. She got exposed to way too much sports. And she asked for one day that of this whole month that did not involve any English football. So she set the parameters of a one day with no football in it, and it goes disastrously wrong.
Oh no.
But in a funny way that every person that's in a relationship will understand. I wrote it in one flush. There was 0 edits. It came out as if like a great scene from like a romantic comedy, but was a part of my real life. So
I love that you got that in because we try and make sure that people who are listening, this isn't just for people who love soccer. This is actually more for people who are new to soccer or, people who are adjacent to somebody who's a big soccer fan. So that's really important that you said here so that people will go out and pick up the book, not just if they're soccer fans, but really travel and just the human experience there. So thanks for sharing that there.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Todd Smith for joining us. I'm Sean Castles. This is the Ultra World Podcast. And while we missed Mark Renee today, and he's going to be very upset that he didn't get to talk to you about the Miracle on Ice, I know that for sure. Thank you for joining us. Go out there, people, find your football family, and go out and get the Relegated book. Go out and enjoy your summer reading and just enjoy the World Cup.
This has been the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts, Mark Renee and Sean Castles. Our executive producer is Sue Zizza. Mark Renee and Sean Castles are co-producers. David Shin is our master engineer. Assistant producer, Avery Gehrig, and I'm Alicia Antwine. To be a guest on the Ultra World podcast or learn all about sponsorship opportunities, send an email to ultraworldpod@gmail.com. Be sure to follow the show on all the social media platforms at Ultra World Pod. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved, Ultra World Podcast, LLC.